Welcome to Pack Talk Podcast, episode 103. Today we're going to be talking about, do you need a muzzle for your dog, how to train your dog to a muzzle, everything muzzles and dog related. And on March 4th, 2021, we did release a YouTube video called How to Make the Muzzle Fun for Your Dog. And in that video, we explained the process of how to condition the muzzle for a dog. That way you can use it whenever you need to, like at the vet, at the groomer, for any type of training, those types of things. So muzzles do have an important part in dog training. I do think that there's a proper way to use them, an improper way to use them. Also, I have Kevin and Ben with me today. If you're not watching, they're sitting here. So we're going to talk about muzzles, all right? But it can serve a variety of functions in your dog training or just with having a dog. Like if you go to the vet office, we don't want any vets getting bit. We don't want any veterinarian technicians getting bit or anything like that. And people always freak out about dogs biting people. They're animals. They're dogs. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you're going to get bit, if you're working with dogs. Groomers too, if they're trying to groom your dog or do nails or things like that, you might need a muzzle in that situation. Dog chiropractors, yes, that's a thing. Dog chiropractic. So that's putting your dog in weird positions, things they're typically not used to. So you might need a muzzle in that situation. Sometimes you need a muzzle for safety. Kevin trained a big cane corso last year or the year before. I don't remember what year it was, where there was some muzzle usage to build up comfort levels with that dog. Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And there's other situations too. But overall, again, the muzzle can serve a variety of functions. One of the things that ticks me off about muzzles is people just throw them on their dogs, or, you have trainers shoving them on the dog, or you have groomers or vet people shoving it on a dog. And, groomers and vets have to do what they got to do sometimes to get things done. They don't have all the time in the world to work on things. They have an hour for that dog to make sure it's taken care of. So that situation I can kind of understand. But there's trainers on YouTube, for example, where this is an aggressive dog. First time they meet the dog, they shoving a muzzle on the dog, or having the owner just put a muzzle on the dog for the first time. Then they enter into, physical training with the dog, where the dog's jumping all over the place, head-butting them, all this kind of stuff, just escalated scenario that doesn't need to happen, So when you're working with a dog that might need a muzzle, it's best to think about it long term. How can I build this up? You know what I'm saying? But one of the things that a muzzle can do for dogs too is provide mental exercise, mental stimulation. And we know that cognitive challenges are great for a dog's longevity, even if a muzzle is never needed. Let's say you got a nice, friendly lab, right? No biting, no issues, and never will put its teeth onto a human. You know how some dogs are like that, right? You could still train that dog to use a muzzle or to wear a muzzle just for the cognitive challenge benefit, which opens up more neural pathways in that dog's mind, helps that dog think through problems differently, can work that dog's mind in a different way than it's used to. So in that case, it would just be a great training tool to get that dog used to the muzzle. What else you got on kind of introduction to muzzles or overall thoughts on muzzles?
I mean, it's just a great tool to use for, like you said, any dog. I'm thinking about like that lab, not even like a cognitive thing, but think about if you move and you go to a new vet and that vet doesn't like that dog, or doesn't not like him, but like is not necessarily comfortable with him. Mm-hmm. It may be more beneficial for the dog to wear a muzzle at first while the vet gets to know him.
Yeah.
Versus just letting them figure it out, because that's going to put, that person that's handling him, that's never handled him before, more at ease potentially.
Right.
Which is just going to set him up for a better scenario in general.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a good thing to use.
Well, you see on the socials too, sometimes, other dog trainers or whatever, they've got muzzles on dogs when they're letting the dogs play or anything like that.
Right.
What do you think about that?
I mean, there's ways to resolve it, and I get what they're doing. They're like, okay, I've done my proper socialization aspect. Maybe I think these dogs are good to go together, but not like 100%. So let me try to mitigate any potential circumstance that could occur. Mm-hmm. Now, to me, would I do that? No, I need to know like 100% that dog's going to be good to go, or that I could be able to correct or pull him out of something, you know,
Mm-hmm.
without further exacerbating the potential issue.
Right.
But I do get what they're doing. They're setting themselves up for success, trying to get a good repetition. The same thing if like we have a dog that's got issues like that Cane Corso, putting a muzzle on him, getting him used to it, so I can take him to a farmer's market, so I can be more at ease, so he can be more at ease. You know,
Yeah.
because sometimes there's factors in the environment. They're going to happen.
Right.
And, you know, you need to try to account for it. But as far as like a controlled scenario, trying to get a dog good to go and play with another dog, I think there's other steps to take
Yeah.
prior to just like forcing that.
Right. Yeah. I think in most cases they're not taking the proper steps.
Right.
They got some stuff done. Maybe they got some, you know, training done, but instead of progressing that a little bit further before using the muzzle, they're just putting a muzzle on the dog to get it around other dogs.
Right.
Which is not totally wrong, but I wouldn't say that it's optimal.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't say that it's ideal, because you could go, like you said, more socialization, more development of training, to where you have a better understanding of how that dog's going to react, you know, in those situations.
I mean, not even account for equipment fail.
Right.
That muzzle comes off. Now it's just 3 or 4 dogs going at it.
Right.
Well, now you just regressed in everything that you were
Right.
trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, with any piece of dog training equipment, there's always potential for failure.
Absolutely.
Ben, you going to fix Kevin's mic for him? But whether it's just a leash, you know, leashes can pop, leashes can break, the leash clips themselves can break. You know, back ties that people tie off dogs with, those can break.
Collars shatter.
You know, collars can break. So any piece of training equipment can fail. So a muzzle is no different than that. Also, some dogs can still rip those things off, especially if you haven't done the proper conditioning. So if you're, you know, kind of jumping ahead of yourself and using a muzzle with those aggressive or reactive dogs in specific situations where you know they're getting triggered, you know, you're also potentially inviting an equipment failure.
Yeah.
There's not going to be 100% non-equipment failure rate. You know what I'm saying? But one of the other thoughts about, you know, trainers just putting muzzles on dogs, letting them kind of do their thing, I think if you go through the proper training progression, take all of your training steps, there's still some situations like with that Cane Corso you were training where you still might start using a muzzle just to make sure things are going smoothly before you trust 100% without there being a muzzle. You know, I think back to some dogs I've trained where it's like 2 sibling dogs, they've got aggression towards each other. You know, you could probably put a muzzle on them when you're starting to work with them together, when they have a history of fighting, after you've been through all your training, just to make sure they're good to go or see their responses in higher arousal situations that you haven't been in before, you're not able to get into without those dogs being together.
Right. So now you can get a gauge on it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it definitely has its place, you know, in training and those types of rehabilitation scenarios. But I'm also a big believer in doing all of your training steps first before you go the muzzle route. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, if the relationship and the structure's not there,
Yeah.
and something happens and you try to like recall the dog or resolve the situation,
Right.
probably not going to listen to you.
Right.
You know? So
Right.
it's good to have
Right.
those preliminary steps done.
Yeah. And that includes conditioning the dog to a muzzle.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Other ways you could use a muzzle in training would be, you know, let's say you're a dog trainer, you're training a dog for an owner who has a history with the dog's attacking them or whatever, you know, bite history, whatever. That person can feel more comfortable with a muzzle on their dog going through those situations before than with no muzzle even after training. You know what I'm saying? So making sure the muzzle is properly conditioned to the maximum extent possible before you enter into those high arousal situations is going to help you out, because the muzzle is just like any other piece of training equipment. It's just like a leash and collar. You know, we have to teach a dog how to properly respond to a leash. We have to teach a dog how to properly respond to whether it's just a collar that their leash goes onto, whether it's a remote collar, anything like that, a harness. You know, it's just like anything else. We got to condition the dog to that piece of equipment, how to use it properly, be comfortable in it before we can actually go through scenarios with that equipment. You know what I'm saying? Because there's also dogs where you put a harness on them and they get freaked out because they've never felt something around their whole body. You know, we've all seen the dogs that freak out with leashes, whether they're a leash puller or they're scared of that leash because they've never had one on them before, and now they're freaking out because something's pulling on them a little bit. So again, just like anything else, teaching that dog how to be comfortable with that. Same thing with humans. You know, let's say just a watch is an easy example. Someone's not used to wearing a watch. You put a watch on, it might feel uncomfortable at first, but over time you get more comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can reason yourself more than a dog can, you know, because you're a human. The way that your brain works is a little bit different than their brain, a lot different, right? So you kind of know what you're doing to yourself by putting a watch on, right? You put a watch on a dog or something around their ankle, that's going to freak the dog out. They don't reason the same way you do. So the conditioning process for that, just like a muzzle, is very important to help that dog be comfortable with that equipment.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, even when you're doing these like controlled scenarios, like going back to the owner being more comfortable working them with a muzzle, you know, if the dog's already uncomfortable with the muzzle and then they enter that stressful scenario, like we're just setting up for failure.
Right, going to be 10 times worse.
Right.
Gonna
So
be 10
it's
times
very
worse.
important that they are, you know, again, just very, very comfortable with that. Because if they're sitting there trying to tug on it,
Right.
and your trainer's saying, "All right, good to go, it's on. Let's go ahead and go through this session," it's like red flag. Hold on, let's just take a couple steps back.
Oh yeah. Or if you just like shove a muzzle on your dog to go to the vet office, for example, now if the dog's never had a muzzle before, you're probably going to create what's called a superstitious association, to where your dog associates the muzzle with the experience of the vet office, therefore hating the muzzle, hating the vet office.
Yeah.
You know, to put it in simple terms.
And now you're going to where you can't even use your tool, because now
Right.
you're going to try to put on your dog, and if he's already got a bite history, well, guess what?
Right.
If he doesn't like it, he's going to let you know.
Right. And the next time you go there, or the next time you put that muzzle on your dog, they're going to freak out.
Yeah.
You know, because they've already had that experience. They know that muzzle means they're going to get handled a certain way. They're going to have something shoved up their butthole to get the poop sample out, you know, because you forgot to bring the poop in the poop bag. You know?
I always bring mine, even when I don't need it.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes bring it in, they just like throw it away.
Right. If you forget it, just tell them you're going to bring one by later.
Yeah.
Don't subject your dog to a thing up their butthole, you know.
Happening to Lulu. She looked so mortified as it was occurring, and the vet had slipped a muzzle on her.
Oh,
so
yeah. Oh, yeah.
both
all the combination factors.
Oh yeah.
Well, there's a couple different types of muzzles that you could get if you're looking into getting one, or after hearing this conversation you decide to get one. Your basic muzzles are your basket muzzle. That generally will come with like a wire. It's like a metal wire basket or a leather style basket. Those are generally the two types of baskets that I recommend. And those are my ideal muzzles for most situations. The good thing about the basket is you can still put pieces of food through the wire or through the leather straps for the basket so your dog can eat. And I generally will get a basket that's bigger than the dog's muzzle so they can, you know, easily breathe. Their mouth can open. They can eat things. You know, they're comfortable in the muzzle. It should be a comfortable thing, not something that's uncomfortable. There's also nylon muzzles. You'll probably see these more so often at grooming salons, where they're pretty tight to the snout. And the objective of these, obviously, is to prevent getting bit. You know, so these do tend to fit a little bit snugger. Obviously, your dog can still breathe through their nose, but a lot of times they can't open their mouth with this type of muzzle. And there's lots of different styles of these. I'm just talking in general terms. And then you have what's called a Baskerville muzzle, which is a newer type of muzzle. It's kind of like a basket. I think a specific company like Baskerville company or whatever makes these muzzles, but it's like a plastic material, heavy plastic. We have a couple. But it's like a basket style, but more open. So you can definitely feed your dog through them.
Oh, it's got like that slot in the front.
It's got the slots on the front, yeah. And they tend to be pretty good. You know, they also have some other straps on the back where you can attach it to your dog's existing collar. So it's got the straps for the muzzle itself, but then it has extra straps where you could attach it to a collar. That way it's more secure. So those are good muzzles too, you know. But we have used all of these muzzles. But like I said, my preference is the basket muzzle. My personal dogs, I have leather basket muzzles for them just because the leather seems to be more comfortable for them, and I can easily feed them through there, and they seem comfortable in it. But the wire ones, too, are pretty good.
Yeah.
They usually have like a little resting pad that rests right on the dog's nose, on the top of their snout. The basket's nice and big, so they got plenty of space to breathe, open their mouth, whatever. all that kind of stuff. But those are generally the types of muzzles that people will get. Have you seen other ones or anything?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, the wire one's what I use for Zdeno.
Yeah.
And then Roxy's fine with the grooming one, honestly.
Yeah.
Slip it over, and she's okay.
You can condition a dog to any muzzle.
Yeah.
You know, so whatever muzzle you decide to get, or maybe you decide to use different types of muzzles, you could condition your dog to all those. If you have a specific muzzle, like a basket muzzle, and you take your dog to the groomer, you'd want to take your muzzle with you to the groomer, which we'll talk about in a minute, because if you don't, they might use the muzzle they have, and if you haven't worked with that type of muzzle with your dog, it could feel different, make them a little bit more uncomfortable, but all the work you've done to get your dog comfortable with the muzzle would pay off even in that situation, you know. So how to condition a muzzle? All right, we want to make this fun for your dog, fun for you, make it a game. Right? So it's just like any other piece of training equipment. We're ideally going to use food rewards to begin to condition our dog's muzzle. So there's a bunch of different ways to do this. We'll just talk a very simple way, which kind of reflects on what we did in our YouTube video, how to make the muzzle fun for your dog. But first, you just have a muzzle with you. You have your dog in your normal training area. You've already done your engagement work, so engagement is super simple for your dog. But you could have the muzzle tied off to your belt. You could have it laying on the ground. You could have it in your hand. You just have it in vicinity, because what you're doing is slowly exposing your dog to the muzzle. So you have the muzzle out there. You're just doing engagement with your dog. You're getting some eye contact. You're saying good. You're rewarding them. You're marking yes. You're rewarding them. These types of things. Now you have to start thinking about progressing your training. We've always talked about this. Progressing your training. Be a critical thinker. Don't just make things super easy and stick there. You got to progress to the next step. So if I've had the muzzle exposed to my dog, let's say I'm holding it in my hand while I'm doing my engagement, my dog's familiar that, hey, there's a new thing entering the picture. And this isn't going to be one training session, by the way. This will be a couple training sessions. But there's a new item entering the training picture, right? Now I can start to move this muzzle toward my dog, or have my dog put their head into the muzzle. You've got options, and you could do both options. First thing you could do, hold the muzzle in your hand, drop some food in your muzzle, so now your dog has to put their snout into the muzzle to get the food. That's one option. Or you could take the muzzle and just put it right over the tip of your dog's nose for a second, and then mark that good, reward, right? Yes, reward. Any other ideas for progressing?
I mean, mixing it up is what I like to do, like with anything, right? So we use engagement to create motivation. So if you're getting to where your dog is putting their nose into the basket, getting the food, great. Sometimes release from that, say yes, start your engagement game, get those high levels of motivation so that they learn, hey, I get something really good when I perform this action. And as you have that to where it's like a fluid thing, now just like any kind of stay behavior or anything like that, you just start building duration.
Right.
Holding it on for a couple seconds longer at a time, just building up. But again, just making sure everything's positive. Food rewards are there.
Yeah.
Hey, if he starts kind of blowing you off, all right, training session's done.
Right.
Come back out later, do it again.
Right. Right. And if he's blowing you off, you might reduce what your dog's able to access.
Right.
So no food rewards if you're not doing a muzzle session, if that's your focus. You know what I'm saying? No toys in the house, for example.
Yep.
Until you start doing some better work with a muzzle session.
Yeah.
These types of things. But yeah, I mean, increasing your criteria of performance, like you said. So once your dog is easily putting their snout into the muzzle, or easily you're putting it on their snout, now you increase duration. So if your dog's used to putting their snout in and pulling it right out, now they got to hold it in there for a couple seconds. And how could you achieve that? You could feed them through the gaps in the basket on the muzzle to increase a little bit of duration, just like you would with a stay behavior. And then you slowly increase the amount of time between your food rewards. See what I'm saying? Because like with the stay behavior, same thing. When we get to that duration piece, first we make it super easy. We're rewarding very often. And then we slowly increase the interval of time between food rewards with that dog maintaining that behavior. So same thing with the muzzle. They got their snout in the muzzle. You're rewarding at a very, short interval of time, and then slowly increasing the interval of time so your dog is more and more comfortable, right? That's what you would recommend? Or
Yeah, absolutely.
And then after that, again, you're increasing your criteria. This is going to be over a couple of training sessions. Again, you want to make sure your dog is very comfortable. You want to be very comfortable as well. You don't want to be pushing this too fast. You also don't want to take too slow, or take too long. So, again, it's one of those balancing acts. You're making judgment calls based on your dog's performance as you're progressing forward. So if you're increasing your criteria from duration of having snout in the muzzle, now for me personally, I'm probably going to start putting the straps on the muzzle onto their head. So what I generally will do is just, put my hands on the straps, act like I'm putting the straps together, but I'm actually not. That way the dog's getting used to me doing that. And then I'll say, yes, drop the whole muzzle. They can pull their snout out, and then I can reward them. I can do reward events, like you said, making sure my motivation levels are very high. Because some dogs, as you go through that duration piece of holding your snout there, some dogs have the tendency maybe to not want to do it anymore because they don't want to keep their snout there. So you got to keep motivation high, keep it a fun experience. And as time goes on, they get more and more used to it and desensitized to having their muzzle in there. Because it can also feel weird to a dog, because they're going to have their whiskers are going to be kind of compressed and stuff like that. Think about humans wearing masks during COVID. People hated that.
Oh, yeah.
People were not conditioning themselves to the masks. Or like when you were a correctional officer, you got to go into the gas chamber. Did you guys do any type of pre-game that by getting your masks on or whatever? Or there was...
And RRT we did. So we would stand in formation. They'd bomb us out with tear gas and make us stand there for like 20 seconds or so. And then they start screaming, Don, Don, Don. You could put it on.
Oh, okay.
But you go through those dry runs at
right,
first
that's
to make
what I'm
sure.
saying, the dry runs.
Yeah, you have all the straps and everything right so that you put it on correctly.
Right.
And then sometimes when you actually need it in real time, it breaks on you. So
So that's what I was trying to get to. Like when you actually have the tear gas on you.
Yeah.
That's like your high stress situation.
Right,
But
so
before
that
that, you've practiced putting it on, strapping it down, taking it off. So you're, making sure that it works.
Oh, yeah.
All that kind of stuff. But that, again, equipment failure is going to be there.
Yeah.
It
was.
Yeah.
That rubber snapped against my face. I'm sitting there holding the visor in my hand and just dorm filled with tear gas.
Been any situations with masks like with paintball back in the day?
I mean, I guess so. Like, I feel like in paintball you need your mask though.
Right.
It's for your own protection.
Yeah. Never get used to tasting that paint though.
No.
Ugh.
Yeah, when it goes through the slits.
God.
Yeah. No, I mean like COVID, probably the only thing. I hated wearing the mask too.
Yeah.
And so.
But you could get used to wearing it. Or you
I
did
mean,
get
you
used
could,
to
I
wearing it.
guess.
We had to do it for a few years, it feels like.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you wanted to, but we're not for the dog, leaving it on for like 8 hours.
Right.
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 Which is what
That's what you're doing in
if
COVID.
you had to go to work,
Or to the
you
doctor
might be wearing
office.
it for
Like if you're going to the doctor office, you were wearing a mask.
I mean, think of traveling.
Yeah.
In the lobby, on the airplane, I mean, that's hours and hours and
See,
hours.
I don't travel, so I'm good to
Yeah,
go.
right.
You don't travel, huh?
I got some travel coming
I
up
was
this
going to
year.
say what's going on in a
I got
couple
2
weeks.
vacations this year, and they're big time. But so all similar. But paintball back in the day, I just thought about that. You're wearing that mask. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but you want to play the game of paintball. So you're like, I'm wearing this mask.
Oh, we have that logic aspect too, where we
Right.
know, hey, this is going to keep me safe.
Right.
Well, safe as
Some
can
people.
be.
Some
Yeah.
people.
I mean, I used to wear one that was like right with my jawline, and then after I started getting chopped in the neck a lot, I bought one with a shield after that. It's a big safety concern,
Yeah, but you're wearing that mask because you want to play the game.
Yeah.
So
There's a reward. You know?
that's what I'm saying with the dog. You make it a game, so they
Right.
want to wear it, or they don't care about wearing it because it's a good time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Even if it's not a good time. Like in paintball, you might get destroyed sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
It might be painful, but it's still a good time.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you'll live.
All right, so if we've gotten our dog used to duration in the muzzle, we're starting to get our dog used to putting the straps on the muzzle. Once I've done lots of repetitions of acting like I'm putting the straps on, then I'm actually going to fasten the straps. Make sure my dog's duration with the straps being on, I'm going to do that the same way as I was duration with the snout, rewarding through the muzzle, short intervals of time at first, increasing as we go, increasing the amount of time between the food rewards as we go. And then from there, your basic conditioning is completed because now your dog's good to go with wearing a muzzle. You're already gotten them to the point where there's basically no food rewards needed. Once you've increased those interval of times enough, now you need to start going through scenarios with your dog with the muzzle on. So this could be just going for a walk. getting your dog comfortable going for a walk with the muzzle. It could be, doing training drills with a muzzle on. You could basically, you want to go through every single situation possible that you're going to go through with your dog with the muzzle on, just so, again, they're used to wearing the muzzle.
Yeah.
Right? That way, when you need it, it's ready to go. And that's your basic conditioning process.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are going to be dogs that are going to be more challenging on how to condition with the muzzle. And whenever that situation pops up, if the process we're not talking about is working, you probably want to seek the advice of an experienced dog trainer that can help guide you based on your specific situation. There's just so much individuality with those, and there's a lot of dogs with bad experiences, with muzzles, and so now we have to rehabilitate that. But I will say, if you take your time, you focus on your routines and rituals, you focus on your onion layers. I'm doing a big throwback right now.
Big throwback.
And you build up your engagement, and then you make the muzzle a game. A lot of times you can overcome that.
Yeah.
But it just takes more repetitions. You know what I'm saying? What are some things you should not do with a muzzle? Kevin?
Don't just jam it on the face and strap it up and say, hey, good to go.
Right. Right.
I mean, I would say, don't put them in any scenario where it could get grabbed, pulled, or any kind of...
The muzzle or the dog?
Both, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, the muzzle. I mean, I think back to talking about scenario with play. What's stopping that other dog from grabbing the muzzle and now pinning the dog down by it? So now we're just creating a worse and worse scenario.
Right.
So it's like anything. You want to socialize it properly to these situations.
Right.
Which means as much control as possible, positive experiences, building up those repetitions. And just like anything, it needs to be maintained as well.
Yeah.
So I think that was a big one from personal experience. Like Zdeno, I've had him for years at this point, and there's probably a good stretch of time to where he didn't wear a muzzle. And so I was pulling it out and just messing with it one day, and I could tell he was uncomfortable. So it's like, hey, going back and do this. Sometimes maybe you should just put it on your dog, let him wear it around the house for a little while.
Right.
Right. Just make sure we're maintaining it. But yeah, as far as not doing anything with the muzzle, don't jam it on. Don't put them in dangerous situations, obviously.
Yeah.
Things like that is what I'm thinking about.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely don't shove it on your dog for an unpleasant experience. Don't follow these dog trainers that are out there on the interwebs, shoving the muzzles on the dogs, and they do some crazy stuff. What the hell?
Having a shield at the same time.
Yeah. Don't put a muzzle on your dog, then induce stress. Properly train the muzzle, then systematically work on your dog's stressors, right? Once you've done that conditioning process, once your dog's used to your daily routines and rituals with the muzzle, then you can start going through those stressful scenarios.
Yeah.
Right? Just do it systematically, step by step. There's no rush.
It should be a slow build-up.
Don't put it on your dog the day you're going to need to use it.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
I'll get this
that
done.
Appointment, don't put it on 30 minutes before you got to go.
I'll get this done 10 minutes. Big deal.
Kevin, talk to us a little bit about that cane Corso you were training and how you used the muzzle in that dog's training.
Well, it was just...
Give us a little bit of background on the dog.
There was a lot of mitigating circumstances with him because he had killed another dog. And he was only 6 months old as well, which was obviously that's a lot going on.
That's pretty extreme.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot to digest, not something you deal with every day.
Right.
So it's like knowing what we're dealing with and going through a couple weeks of training, we're getting to the socialization aspect. It's like, hey, I need to, be prepared for certain things that I'm not going to be able to control.
Because that killing is also history with the dog.
Right. Huge.
So you got to overcome that.
Right.
And
then
there's a lot of risks at play.
Right.
And
on top of that, he's an extremely dominant dog. At least, the behaviors that he would give off, there are times where he'd grab people and start humping. And he's a big dog. He's a cane Corso,
Grab him with his paws and hump them.
Right.
Not grabbing him with his mouth. Or was he biting people?
No, yeah, he would.
Yeah.
He'd mouth on people and things like that. And it progressed to where, we did the whole rehoming thing after.
Right.
But, if he felt empowered, he would run with it. He would do the extreme behaviors. So for me, and what I'm dealing with, hey, I know as I go through this work, I'm going to be in potentially very stressful situations, not just for him, but for me. I'm not exactly 100% comfortable handling this dog. It is what it is. Yeah, we're dog trainers. We're going to get it done. But you have those dogs where you're handling them, and you're just ready.
Right.
Because they could do anything at any moment.
Right.
And it's like, all right, well, I need to set myself up for success because if I'm elevated, he's going to be elevated. Right. So I think I went with him 2 or 3 different times at the farmer's market. And that first time, we were just on the outside, downstay muzzle. staying there for like 30 minutes, feeding, you know, getting him used to the chaos that can be a farmer's market, you know, eventually building up to where he could walk through. And again, I'm still not 100% because, like we said, equipment fails.
Right.
But I'm feeling better
Right.
versus just going in raw.
Right.
As you know, you go to those things, dogs are rushing you. You know, you can't intercept that fast enough before something will happen.
Right.
So just having that in place.
What was his remote collar responses like? Was he pretty, like, there's some dogs, just for the listener, there's dogs out there where the remote collar, even if you condition it properly, use it properly, you know, they're going to take that correction.
Oh yeah.
And they're gonna keep fighting you on that.
Yeah.
You know, was he responsive to it, or was he tolerant?
I had to play with it depending on the scenario. That was the thing too. His was so extremely fluid because it's not your standard, hey, just turn it up until you get an effective correction, because it wouldn't work. It would feed into his mindset, then he would redirect onto me, you know. So it got to where, like, hey, am I doing like a low stem constant, you know, just to kind of have that little bit there just to pull him out of it, or whatever the case may be. So not as responsive to the remote collar, or not as easy, I guess, as some dogs are.
Right.
You know, you just press the button, they stop what they're doing.
Right.
So it was, you know, working from a relationship aspect with him, I did do a lot of hand feeding, a lot of engagement with him just to make me more desirable than what's going on. And all of that plays a role. But even then with the remote collar, obviously, like, if you have a dog like this, it's your personal dog, you can build that up over time to where they're going to be responsive to the way that you want them to be.
Right.
It's just going to take a lot more.
Just takes more repetitions and more than a couple weeks of training.
Right.
Right. And that's what a good trainer would do. If you're using a good trainer, they would make those recommendations for you as a dog owner.
Yeah.
On how to progress from the training that they've done for you. You know, that's what. There's a misconception about dog training, is that I'm going to send my dog for a couple weeks, get it back, it'll be perfect.
Yeah.
Right?
They can play with other dogs now. Anybody can touch them.
That's
you know?
not how dogs are. They're
Right.
living, breathing beings, you know, and there is going to be some work to be done after, let's say you do a board and train, there's going to be some work to be done after that. So it's very important when you're selecting a trainer that you select a trainer that's going to work with you for the life of your dog, because some dogs, they need more work at home than others.
Yeah.
But the board and train portion of training is still very important, because it gets a lot of that groundwork done for your dog, right? It gets your dog through a lot of scenarios that are going to help you later when you're continuing training at home with your trainer, you know. My personal dog, you know, I've had to use a muzzle on, not because I, you know, was just using a muzzle as equipment, but also for safety concerns because of his history of not liking being touched, you know. When I take him to a vet office, obviously he's getting touched. You know, when I don't take him to the groomer. I do all that myself because he's a Doberman short hair. But, you know, dog chiropractor. I have a dog chiropractor that I take him to for his, you know, back and joints, obviously. And so that's a very weird scenario for a dog, especially like my dog, that does not like being touched. But it's good for him to get his joints adjusted, his back adjusted. You know, so he's got to be tolerant of that. Yep. You know what I'm saying?
Kudos to that guy too. You know, keeping it going,
right.
Session after session.
Right. Yeah. So I conditioned the muzzle with my dog, and back in the day before Canine Revolution, where I was working for other dog trainers, you know, old school training, unfortunately created a bad association to the muzzle. So I had to redo all of that. But nowadays, I just take the muzzle with me to the vet office, for example, and I just put it on him. Like, we're in the vet office with it on, but I'll put it on right before we need to start touching him and stuff, and he's fine. He's tolerant of them touching him. He doesn't like them touching him, but he's tolerant of them touching him,
Yeah,
you know?
he'll deal with it.
And then, you know, once they're done touching him, you know, I just take it off. No big deal. We can all be in the same room together, all that kind of stuff, you know. But for the vet's comfort and for his comfort, I just put the muzzle on him. You know, there's probably a good potential I don't even need the muzzle, but it makes everybody in the room more comfortable when it's there.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's important to note as well. You know, if you have a dog that has a history like my dog, for example, and maybe you don't need a muzzle, it's still good to use one, you know, because it keeps everybody comfortable.
Or should something happen, you don't want that that massive regression.
Right.
99 times it could be fine, and that 100th one, it could not be.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So understanding that, like, just realize the type of dog you have, like, you know, Chad obviously has, and, you know, some of my clients have. Realize the type of dog you have and just adjust accordingly.
Right.
Just make sure they're set up. You know?
He's not stressed out putting the muzzle on or anything. He's stressed out about people touching him.
Yeah.
But if I put the muzzle on him and I go to the vet office, the vet's energy levels go from being anxious about potentially having a dog come at him or whatever to being more comfortable, especially when they see how comfortable I am and that I'm helping them handle him.
So happened when I took little Gary to the vet.
Tiny Gary.
Oh, scary Gary.
With my dog chiropractor as well, I already knew that was going to be a thing because chiropractors, they have to adjust your whole spine. They have to touch you in weird ways. So the first time that he ever came, obviously had the muzzle on. And, Bane definitely, did not like that. He's growling, he's snarling at him with the muzzle on and everything. The second time he came, Bane growled at him, turned around, headbutted him. You know what I'm saying? Headbutted the guy, knocked the guy over. The guy got back up. He's like, I got to finish, I was like, all right. So we finished. No big deal. Ever since then, Bane's been very tolerant of the guy. He just had to get that headbutt in, But he's been very tolerant of the guy. He doesn't like it. The guy knows he doesn't like it. But everybody's good to go. We got the muzzle on. It's no problem. As soon as we're done, we take the muzzle off, and they just, I put Bane in a downstay. The guy and me are just talking. It's no big deal, So that's how I use a muzzle with a dog that, does not like being touched by people that have to touch them. You got to get those things done for the health and well-being of the dog. And also I'll handle him myself, so I'll tell them, hey, I'm more comfortable than you. He's going to be more comfortable if you let me handle him, And this reminds me of a recent vet visit I went to with the dog. And friendly dog, except at the vet.
That one surprised me too.
Flips a switch. He goes crazy. So the owner calls me. They're like, hey, so-and-so's not doing so good at the vet. I was like, really? I was surprised. And so she was like, can you come to the next vet visit with me? I'm like, sure, of course. So we go to the vet visit. They walk in, and I can tell he's already got a switch flip just from walking in the door. And I had already sent her the YouTube video, how to make the muzzle fun for your dog. So she was working on all that, trying to make it a good experience. So he was good to go with the muzzle, but walking into the vet office, switch went off, you know what I'm saying? And you could tell he was not comfortable being there. And she was getting anxious because I think she was a little bit embarrassed of the last time they were there. He said he was screaming. He was, those dogs that kind of get dramatic, flailing and all that. They had to bring the whole team in, one vet tech on each leg,
oh my God,
one on the head, controlling him so they could give him his vaccinations or whatever. And so anyway, I was like, hey, let's do this. I talked to the vet. I'm like, hey, let's do this. Let's go into the room. You let me handle his head. You bring in one vet tech that can help me handle his body if needed. And then you can do your examination and everything. And so sure enough, I handled his head, and the way I do it is I kind of take my thumbs and I put them through the muzzle straps that are around his neck, and then I basically use my middle fingers and I'll wrap them around his collar just so that muzzle can't just fly off. And also what that does is I've got that on each side of his head, so I'm kind of holding him underneath his chin there with his head facing me. And also that allows me to help control his head if he starts, getting dramatic or flailing or anything like that. That keeps him more stable. And also I can kind of remind him to settle down. Because you know how it is when they go into that next level mindset, the switch flips,
Oh, yeah.
They start going crazy. They get into that tunnel vision, so I want to be right there and like, hey, no, settle. I don't need to correct him or anything. I'm just kind of holding him there. And my energy, the way that I'm pushing energy to him is helping him to settle down, plus our relationship, So we get in there, I go ahead and get ready. The vet tech comes in, they're like, wow, he's already much better than he was last time. I was like, you guys just walked in. I guess last time he started going crazy, you know? So they start doing the examination, and I could see he was getting, nervous about it. So he starts, screaming, whatever. The owner starts getting super anxious. I'm like, hey, he's fine. He's not getting hurt or anything. Just hang out. Just watch what I'm doing so you can do it in the future. And so we're sitting there. He's screaming like, no, calm down. And he calms down. And they do everything to him and everything. He definitely didn't like it.
But he dealt with it.
Yeah, but after it was over, we did engagement in the room, which I forgot to say we did engagement going into the room, and he was fine with that. But as soon as they walked in, he stopped taking food, which means his stress levels gotten to the point where his hunger drive shut off. So went through that ordeal. After it was over, we did more engagement. He was back to taking food, so the stress level was back down. And I talked to the vet and I talked to the owner, and I was like, hey, is it cool if she comes and does happy visits where she can just walk in, do some engagement in the lobby? If there's a room open, she can go into the room, get them up on the table, get them off the table, get them on the scale, get them off the scale. Engagement, that's an important part of it too. If you have a dog that's struggling with a specific place like a vet office, try to get in there, do those happy visits, those engagement sessions,
That's a good vet too, though, letting you do what you need to do.
Right.
I've went with vet visits and they're like, well, I feel more comfortable if my vet tech holds him. I'm like, I can handle this dog, dude. Like, but all right. And then something will happen. They're like, all right, go ahead and grab him.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So good to go. Any other scenarios that you've thought of with dogs and muzzles experiences?
No, I mean, there's been a couple. It's not a part of our normal training, repertoire.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like included in every program.
Mm-hmm.
It's still good to do, and I've given guidance to owners on how to do it. Most recently, I believe like Bear, his owner has done a lot with the muzzle and the nails just with my guidance. So just putting in that effort because, he's dedicated, obviously, to his dog, which is somewhat of a special case, just very high energy, just making sure that he could be good to go in every possible scenario. You're not ever going to always be able to account for everything, but if you put in the work and make sure that everything is mapped out to the best of your ability, most of the time you're going to be completely fine.
Right. Right. I mean, even if we have an aggressive dog coming into training, like aggressive, most aggressive dogs are actually just reactive or anxious or something. But if it's even a really aggressive dog, like the real deal, there's people out there like, bring him with a muzzle on. We're not doing that. It's like, bring your dog. Your dog's a dog. Yeah. And it's, let's take the proper steps, establish the relationship, establish engagement. There are dogs that we will do the muzzle in training, because that's what needs to be done. Right. Other people, they can do it at home.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot before.
Right.
Exactly. Because they'll say, what do I need to do? He needs to have all this equipment on. It's like, all right, we're already stressed out. Like, let's take a step back.
Right.
It'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that's kind of the gist on muzzles. Do you need a muzzle for your dog? I think for any dog, it can be a good idea. Great mental exercise. Yeah. Great cognitive challenge, right? Even if you don't need it. If you do need it at some point in your dog's life, get it done early. Get the conditioning done early. Make it a normal training thing that you and your dog do. Once the conditioning's done, you probably want to do sessions with it, at least once a week, if not a couple times a week, just to maintain that piece of equipment. You know what I'm saying? Make it fun. Make it a game. Make it as cognitively challenging for your dog as possible where everybody's having a good time.
Yep.
So, any closing thoughts on muzzles, guys? Ben, you have any muzzle experiences?
No, my dogs.
Yeah. No, they have French Bulldog muzzles. Have you seen those? It's like a net that goes across.
Oh, no. Because they don't really got a snout.
They don't got a snout, so it's like a net that goes across their face. So, anyway, also French Bulldogs, like we've trained Bulldogs that have bitten people and stuff, like their jowls get in the way. So even if they bite you, you're just getting some cheek on you or something.
A little slobbery cushion.
They're biting themselves.
Yeah. Hopefully that can help change the association. They feel it. Oh, wow, that kind of hurt.
Or they bite it, they get angrier. They're biting themselves.
Go one of two ways.
All right, wrapping it up here, let's talk about some affiliates. Obviously, Canine Revolution Dog Training. We're going to help you with your dog. Everything dog related for life. So we're here to support you for life. If you want the best dog training possible, just hit us up, Canine Revolution Dog Training. 843-213-2676, the phone number. You can call or text. Email is info@caninerevolutiondogtraining.com. And one of our highly experienced trainers will be in touch with you. Like Kevin. Good to go. Kevin just got off call.
Just came off that on call. It was an onslaught for a little while.
We also got Canine Revolution Apparel. So if you want to be good to go, you can go on Amazon. You can go to the link below in the description. Go to Amazon. Grab you a good to go hoodie. Grab you a good to go shirt. Grab you a Canine Revolution shirt. Grab you a good to go beanie. Got mine on right here. Right? Good to go. We also got Guinea shirts. We got chicken shirts. We got nice pity shirts.
People are like, what?
All the animals. Ben came up with a really good idea yesterday.
I did?
Yeah. Get some of those mini cameras.
Oh, yeah.
Put it on some animals. Watch what they're doing. One idea was Georgia. Watch where she's going in the woods. Another idea, put it on the cats. Watch where they're going. We don't have a cat shirt. That's a problem.
You don't have a cat shirt?
That's a problem. We don't have a cat
We
shirt.
got chicken shirts before we got a cat shirt.
But also, we only put a camera on a chicken, see what the chickens are doing.
I'll say we know what they're doing.
Staring at the ground.
Also, chickens laying eggs, put a camera on them. They go in there, they're laying an egg. They just sit there for a while till it comes out.
Now that
and
I'm
they
thinking
scream.
about that, Cam's probably going to get nasty.
Yeah. I think that
Gotta watch it.
Georgia would be the interesting one.
Oh, yeah.
We know what she's getting into out here. For the most part.
That's the thing. You don't
never
know.
really know with her.
I know. Sometimes she'll just be laying in a random mud puddle. So I hope the camera's waterproof.
I don't know. I might have to check the specs on that.
Anyway, Canine Revolution Apparel. Go to Amazon. Grab you some apparel. You'll be good to go. We're also affiliated with JOCKOFUEL. This is supporting you for optimal nutrition yourself. So you've got clean energy drinks. You've got milk protein. You've got white tea. You've got multivitamins. You've got greens. You've got creatine.
T-boosters.
Tea boosters. I'm on the Tea Boost. Are you on the Tea Boost?
They're coming.
Okay. They just released a new one.
What the hell?
Tea Boost 2.0.
Mm.
It's got some new ingredients in it. So anyway, go to JOCKOFUEL.com. Get what you need to make yourself optimal. And then use the promo code Canine Revolution for 10% off. And you'll definitely be good to go at that point. All right, next up, Canine Super Supplements. This is going to make your dog optimal. So their main 3 formulas, you got the puppy formula, you got the joint support formula, you got the multivitamin formula, and you got the weight gainer formula, which we just got that dog in training that was found in a mud pit, covered in poop, covered in mud, covered in pee. He's skinny. He's on the weight gainer. So we're going to watch it do its work.
Yeah, that people weren't happy about how skinny he was.
Yeah, you
We
should have
posted
put
a
it in the caption.
Oh, I did. I replied to one comment.
I know,
on
but you
Facebook.
should have put it in
Yeah,
the
I
caption.
should have. I guess they weren't happy about it.
Hey, all comments help the algorithm.
They put him on the weight gainer, boys.
He's on the weight gainer. He just got here.
I know. I'm just saying.
He's definitely skinny. Anyway, Canine Super Supplements is going to help your dog be optimal. So if I was to recommend one of the supplements, I would recommend the joint support because that's what's most commonly missing out of your dog's diet. So grab you a bag of that joint support. It's in a powder form. Put it into your dog's food. You can mix it with some water if you want to. Give it to your dog. Good to go. Use the code Canine Revolution at checkout for 15% off. CanineSuperSupplements.com. Also, we're affiliated with We Feed Raw. Now, we just did a podcast with the co-founder of We Feed Raw, Amy, and we deep dived into some crazy stuff. We found out a lot about kibble, how it's not good for your dog. We found a lot about raw, how it is optimal for your dog. But there's pros and cons. The pros to raw is that it's optimal for your dog. The cons for raw is that it's definitely more heavy on the budget.
Yeah.
The pros to kibble are that it's easy to use, it's optimal for your budget. The cons, not optimal for your dog. So you got to weigh the pros and cons when you're going through thinking about what you're feeding your dog.
Yeah.
And I think you could just get into it a little bit and use raw as a topper to your kibble.
Yeah. I mean, that with the super supplements and everything,
Exactly.
pretty good to go. I mean, kibble, there's higher quality kibbles that keep coming out.
There's higher quality, but it's still shit.
Still, right. Yeah. It's not like,
Right.
what they need. It's just
Right.
like the baseline to keep them going.
Well, also some of the protein sources in the kibble food, not good.
I was listening to it.
Euthanized animals,
Yep.
roadkill,
Yep.
basically animal waste.
Yeah.
It's just trash.
That's what that crude protein means, I
Right.
guess.
And the byproduct and all that. But
That's what I think hot dogs are for us.
Oh, they are.
Just a bunch of weird shit.
they are.
I love
But,
hot dogs, though.
Love a good hot dog.
The thing I think that could work for a lot of people, that could work for a budget, could work for the dog, could work for us, because we all want our dogs to have a good, healthy life.
Oh, yeah.
You have your kibble base, which could be like 50% of what you normally feed them. You put raw on top of that. Now with We Feed Raw, you sign up for a meal plan. I'm currently talking to them about their boxes, trying to get discounts on the boxes, because you could order just a box at a time if you needed to. But right now, you sign up for their meal plan, and they just deliver that at a certain interval of time, right? So what you could do is you could sign up for a meal plan where you're saying, hey, I'm feeding my dog 75% kibble, 25% raw, or 50% kibble, 50% raw. That way it's more budget friendly, right? And you can just put that raw on top of the kibble and try to get the best of both worlds while keeping your budget as budget friendly as possible. And then, like you said, I would add the joint support canine super supplements into that meal just to kind of round everything out. You know what I'm saying? I think that would be optimal, and I think that could fit a lot of people's budgets. But a little bit of raw is better than no raw, you know? So if you just do 75% kibble, 25% raw, you're still getting towards that optimal diet for your dog. And I've had my dogs on the raw here for a little bit. My female Georgia Doberman, she's 50% raw, 50% kibble, always struggled weight-wise. She's got a fast metabolism. She's doing a lot of stuff, very active. You can load her up on kibble, and it just makes her poop mushy because her body can't process all that kibble, and it's not optimal nutrients.
Yeah.
But once I got her on the 50% raw, her body, you know, went to a nice, healthy weight on its own, just from the raw I was feeding her, and poops are way better, and it's actually less poop, which means that she's using those nutrients optimally.
It's actually digesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So definitely check it out, guys. WeFeedRaw.com. Use the code Canine Revolution for 25% off of your meal plan. And again, I'm talking with them about the boxes, but the meal plan right now is what you should check out. Okay, and you can cancel that at any time. If you sign up for the meal plan, you can cancel at any time. You can increase the interval of time, and they do have recommendations on how many ounces of raw to give your dog per meal per day, you know, based on all your dog's statistics and everything. So
That's
good to go.
Straight up raw, or is it like freeze dried?
Straight up raw.
Okay.
Yeah, basically it's like the optimal prey diet for your dog. It's got muscle meat, it's got, you know, organ meat, tendons, ligaments, it's got the bone ground up already. You know, like the meaty bone with the bone marrow in it and everything, all ground up, and it looks like ground beef when it's delivered to you. And then you just kind of cut it open and you just divvy it up based on what you need for it. Dogs freaking love it, dude.
Yeah.
They go crazy for that shit. And Ben's cat too.
Oh yeah, dude, he goes psycho for it, man.
Oh yeah, definitely good to go. But, you know, other ways you could kind of get your dog on some raw. Let's say you're cooking some steak, get your dog some of your steak. You know, I think probably the WeFeed Raw is going to be more cost effective, because I think one of the packages is like a pound. So if you compare that to a pound of ground beef, like what's a pound of ground beef go for right now?
That depends. You get the lean, it's like 13, 14.
Holy shit,
Yeah.
are you serious?
Depending on what you get and where you get it.
Really?
Yeah. But I know like the 80-20, it's like 10.
$10.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the WeFeed Raw is $10 for a pound.
That's not bad at all.
You know, if you just buy it like that. If you do the meal plan, obviously with the discount code, it's cheaper. But yeah, so I think it's like comparable to like the price of ground beef based on what's going on. But the way they, you know, she went in detail on the podcast, the way they harvest their meat, it's all, you know, from American farms and everything, except for I think the lamb and the venison come from New Zealand, but everything else is from American ranches and stuff, and goes through USDA process and proper cleaning and everything. So I mean, it's definitely the real deal. But as with anything, you know, when you get that high quality, you're going to pay a little bit more for it, obviously.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, but even then, that price is not bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But the difference that it makes is crazy.
Right. I mean, want your dog to live longer,
Right.
be healthier, resist illnesses, resist cancers, like all that
Well, that's
stuff.
one of the things I was talking to her about, is like, you know how many dogs have cancer these days?
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it's a kibble problem
Oh, yeah.
because of all the shit in the kibble.
It's the same thing with us. If
Yeah.
you eat nothing but shit food, like you have
Right.
those things in your body. They
Right.
can develop and mutate into,
Right.
you know, those illnesses.
Well, also your body's not operating right, you know, like
Right.
metabolic syndrome, you know, diabetes, things like this. You're going to have these things happen just based on your nutritional profile.
Yeah.
You know? So, I mean, it definitely makes sense. So you just got to kind of weigh the pros and the cons there.
Got to cut back on the hot dogs.
In moderation, every once in a while. When you have a hot dog, throw one to your dog, too, you know.
Oh, they eat a lot of what I eat. They're fine.
All right, guys, don't forget to rate us and review us on your favorite podcast platform and YouTube. So if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, please rate us, review us, let us know how we're doing. Also, check out Canine Revolution Dog Training and Pack Talk Podcast on YouTube, because we'll post a lot of content on there to help you guys. And if you see something, or if you don't see something that you need help with, please send us a comment on YouTube, send us a DM so we can put that into our media planning profiles to try and get it in future content. If you need consulting, if you need coaching, if you're a dog trainer and you need to consult with somebody to help you with your clients, or you need to consult with somebody to help you with the dog you're working with, email us, info@caninerevolutiondogtraining.com. Our team can help you out. Also, if you're a business owner or a dog trainer, you're trying to go to the next level, email us. We'll help you out as well. If you need a guest speaker for your event, email us as well. Just email us, all right?
Just do it for fun.
We're here to support you. No, don't do it for fun. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. Kevin will be on call. There'll be a bunch of emails coming in.
One day it was just ding, ding, ding. I'm like, all right, we're just coming back in an hour.
All right. If you've ever considered using a muzzle with your dog, if you've ever been to the groomer or the vet office and they say you needed one, just go ahead and do yourself a favor. Go ahead, condition your dog to the muzzle. Even if you've never been in that situation, you're not going to go wrong by conditioning your dog to a muzzle. Make it a game for them. Make it fun. It'll pay off for you and for them in the long term. And until next time, this is Pack Talk Podcast.